Good morning, family. Good morning and welcome back to worship. I am so excited, as always, to be able to share the Word of God with you today. I would encourage you to invite someone to come in and to be a part of our time in the Word today. I know that it's going to bless so many people. If you are a visionary, if you are an entrepreneur, if you're in ministry, if whatever it is, if you're just a person that can see a preferred future, and maybe you're in a place right now that does not seem to match where you know you're going in your heart, this word is for you. And what we're talking about today is the big blessing in small beginnings. The big blessing in small beginnings. I was sitting and I was sharing with my wife. We were laughing the other day. Excuse me. I was talking about when my late father and pastor, Bishop Robert Charles Blake Sr., established me in ministry as a senior pastor at New Home Family Worship Center, East New Orleans. And man, I had these, big ideas of what was going to happen and how it was going to take off. And lo and behold, man, years passed. And it didn't take off. It didn't take off. And many days my heart got discouraged because it looked like what God showed me would never come to pass. And now when I look back on it, of course, a lot older and a lot wiser and understanding the process, I can laugh about it now. But at the time, it broke my heart to have such a large, expansive vision and view, and to have such what seemingly was a small, insignificant reality. It broke my heart. And I know that there's some of you who are there now. You started the business God told you to start the business. You started the ministry God told you to start the ministry. You wrote the book God told you to write the book, and nobody's calling the business, nobody's supporting the ministry, nobody's buying the book right now. I'm here to tell you that there are massive blessings in small beginnings. If you go to Zechariah chapter number 4, verses 9 and 10, it says, "The hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this house. His hands shall also finish it. And thou shalt know that the Lord of hosts hath sent me unto you." Watch verse 10. "For who hath despised the day of small things? For they shall rejoice and shall see the plummet in the hand of Zerubbabel with those 7. They are the eyes of the Lord which run to and fro through the whole earth." Well, read the full context in your leisure. But Zerubbabel was an important leader in the tribe of Judah. He was a descendant of David. And here what you're reading is, we've just pulled out a block of verses relative to what's going on in the context. Zerubbabel is here involved in the reconstruction of the Jewish temple. He was involved in the work to rebuild the temple, and he had to start somewhere. And it seemed like his start was so insignificant in comparison to the massive task that was before him. But it started with what? Small beginnings. And God was with Zerubbabel from the small beginnings to the completion. God said, same those small beginnings you see happening with Zerubbabel, he's also going to finish. You see, the thing we have to understand, and maybe this is just a lesson in wisdom today, the thing we have to understand is that it's not the quantum leap. It's really not the quantum leap. Everybody wants to make the quantum leap. Everybody wants to start a church today and they want 3,000 members next year. That happens sometimes by the will of God, but not in 99% of the cases. Everybody wants the quantum leap, but what I've come to learn is that it's not the quantum leap as much as it is the consistent incremental progress. If you can just wake up every day and do a small thing consistently, the thing that separates winners and achievers from losers is that the winners consistently do small things all of the time. You hear the stories of Michael Jordan or a Kobe Bryant, and you hear of their greatness, but if you pay attention to those documentaries, you'll also hear that these guys come in before the game and they're shooting free throws or they're practicing their three-point shot. And even after the game, you'll hear stories of a Kobe Bryant hanging around in the stadium shooting free throws after the game. The thing that separates the greats from the average or the mediocre or the below average is that the greats do small things consistently. What I've learned relative to people who have a propensity to stick to the bottom, what I've learned relative to people who can't seem to rise above mediocre or average is that they soon get bored with small necessary tasks. Did you hear what I just said? People who are stuck to the bottom, people who are married to average, they have a tendency to become bored easily with small necessary matters. But when one can do the small things consistently, greatness is simply the compilation of many small things, one on top of another, right? Now, in Ripley's Believe It or Not, says that Craig Dawson, listen to this, has an unusual habit. He's a runner. He keeps an eye on the ground as he jogs. This is not for balance. This is not for safety or even shyness. Craig is looking for spare change. During the past 25 years of his running, he has found $8,100 in lost coins. There is a lesson for all of us in this. This reminds us of the power of a small act done consistently over the long haul. Little things can become big things. Now, I have about 4 points I want to give you today. So if you're writing, get your pencil and your pad. The big blessing in small beginnings or small things. Number one, the small start is really the big deal. The small start is really the big deal. Because, listen to this carefully, to get to the point of starting alone is huge. Just to get to the point of starting, to be honest with you, once you make up your mind to start, you should celebrate the fact that you actually made up your mind to start and actually took the step. Because most folk have the vision, most folk have the idea, and they never take the step to start. So the small start is actually the big deal. Can you imagine how many personal fears and negative voices have to be conquered to even go. You know, you think about all of the fears, the fear of failure, the fear of judgment. You know, you think about all of these things, the negative voices, people saying, you can't do it. No one's ever done it before. How much of that stuff does one have to overcome before they even take the step to start? So the reality is the small start is the big deal, because you can't get to the end until you take the first step. You'll never make a shot you never take. So the small start is the big deal. Can you see how hard the pride even works against starting small? Oh, look where you start, and you know, everybody else is here, not considering the fact everybody else has been doing this for 10, 15, 20 years. And here you are here, you should be ashamed of yourself. And all of us have that pride, you know, that voice that's talking to us in the backs of our minds saying, man, you look like a fool. You starting so low, you starting with so little. But you must do, listen to this statement very carefully. You and I, we must do all of the starting. God is not going to start for us. He'll encourage us to start. He'll help us to start, but God is not going to start for us. We must do all of the starting while God will do most of the finishing. So the biggest part in the process is to start, even if that start is small, because once you start, God says, okay, I got it from here. Step in when I tell you, but give it to me now. You started, so give it to me. Listen to what the Bible says in James 2:17 and 18. He says, even so faith, if it hath not works, is dead being alone. Yea, a man may say, thou hast faith and I have works. Show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show thee my faith by my works. How do we see a person's faith? Through their actions. If you can have all of the faith, you can have all of the vision, you can have all of the plan, you can have the greatest dream, but if you don't have faith to take the step, he says it's dead being alone. Miles Monroe put it best. He says the wealthiest place on the planet is the graveyard, because in the graveyard are buried dreams and visions and ideas and wealth that never manifested because people never started. So number one, pat yourself on the back, because the small start is really the big deal. I remember those days, man, in East New Orleans. I remember those days going there and preaching to those pink pews, about 8 people sitting in there. And, you know, my God, wow, that was hard. And God gave me all of this vision, and I saw all of that stuff. And now those days, those things have come, or should I say are coming to pass, like my father prophesied they would. And I often wonder, what if I had gotten discouraged, and what if I didn't start, or what if I quit? But I thank God I inherited something from my father. My father did not have the quit gene in him. I don't have it either. Doesn't matter what I go through, man. I'm going to keep on pressing. I'm going to start. I don't care what folk think. I don't care what I look like. I'm starting, because I know that for every start line, there's a finish line. So the small start is actually the big deal. Have you started yet? That alone is something to celebrate. Number 2, to start small cancels pride and prepares us for greatness. Now, let me let you back into some of my personal experience here, going back even to my days of starting the church. I had a lot of opinions, you know, like a lot of my sons and daughters do, about how I do ministry and what they would do differently. You know, I did the same thing to my father. Everybody knows that I loved and honored and respected my father above all. He is my hero. Yet till today, my father is my hero. But I had nerve enough to sit there with my novice, neophyte self and sit there in judgment of how he did things and what I would do differently. When I get a church, I'm going to do this differently and all of that. And so lo and behold, the Lord fixes it where at a pretty young age, I had my own church, and I sat there and I flunked Sunday after Sunday after Sunday after Sunday. Just completely embarrassing to be going there. And nobody's coming. Nobody's showing up. Just a faithful few. Just enough people to put in a Fleetwood Cadillac at that time. You know, and I'm going to Sunday. But you know what was going on at that time, to be honest with you, going back to point number 2, to start small cancels pride and prepares us for greatness. What was going on in that time and process is that God was crushing me, and God was extracting the pride from my life, because God knew that my future could not afford a heart filled with pride. So sometimes the small start cancels the pride in preparation for the future greatness. The purpose of humble beginnings, because that's what a small start is, it equates to humble beginnings. The purpose of humble beginnings is to establish the heart in humility. When the day of increase happens, because of the day of small beginnings, the character should stay rooted in humility. So since the Lord brought me through that and broke me down, wow, in ways I can't even begin to explain, and crushed all of that pride and drained it out of me, now that the Lord has allowed my life to manifest a little bit, I'm able to keep my feet on the ground. Because when I look back over my life, I realize that if if you were there once, you can return. And I don't want to return. I don't know how some of you can go through so much, and then once God pulls you out, you get lifted up in pride and you get the big head. Babe, let me tell you, if you pass that way, you can go back there again. God can bring you back there. Listen to what the Bible says in 1 Peter 5:5-6. He says, likewise, ye younger, submit yourselves unto the elder. Yea, all of you be subject one to another, and be clothed with humility. For God resisteth the proud and giveth grace to the humble. And verse 6 says, humble yourselves therefore, watch this, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time. Here's the thing I don't want you to miss. Humility and exaltation in the perfect will of God coincide. Let me read it again. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time. So when you're exalted, you should simultaneously stay humble. And what happens is God uses the small beginnings to adjust the humility so that the exaltation can happen. And when the exaltation happens, you'll stay in the position of humble. You see, because life is kind of like a seesaw. When you're exalted and you stay humble, you can keep your exaltation in place. When you get exalted, your exaltation, when you get in pride and you get exalted, your exaltation drops to abasement while your pride is high. Did you see that? The seesaw? Exalted, humility. Prideful, on the ground. On the ground. So to start small cancels pride and prepares us for, watch this, sustainable greatness. I don't want to be a guy that, is a flash in the pan, here today, gone tomorrow. My pride took me out and all that kind of thing. Got the big head and I don't want to be that guy. I've seen too many of those guys that they were superstars yesterday, and today you don't even know their name. Who is that? Who is that? Yesterday everybody knew them, but they got caught up in pride, and like Lucifer, they got cast down. Whenever you get caught up in pride, you get cast down. So to start small cancels the pride and prepares the heart for greatness. That's what's going on with you right now. So despise not this small beginning. God is adjusting some things. Number 3, I only have 4 points. Now, this is important. This one right here is very important. The small start is really the true success masterclass. You know, this is a time that we talk a lot about master classes. Everybody has master classes on writing, acting, sound engineering, you know, podcasting. Everybody, whatever their expertise is, they have master classes and they work. It's like a person takes, you know, 2 or 3 decades of wisdom and experience and pours it into you in some hours. Now, the small start is really the true success masterclass. When you've had to go through it, you know, and work your way through it from one level to the next, one level, nobody gave you any handouts, but from one level to the next, you had to work your way through it. That becomes if you pay attention. So you can either take away the pain and the shame from your experiences in life, or you can take the lessons and the wisdom. And a lot of times when, you know, we have these small beginnings, we get so ashamed and we view it as such a negative that it traumatizes us, and all we take away from it is the pain and the shame, when the reality is that God is allowing you to go through all of these levels that you might take notes and take the lessons and the wisdom from every level. You see, okay, let me read this for you. In Job 8:7, it says, though thy beginning was small, yet thy latter end should greatly increase. So everything between the small beginning and the latter ending that's greatly increased, you get a chance to glean all of the lessons and all of the wisdom of everything between. And the reason you know that you've been able to glean it is that now you can reproduce it. Because what good is success if you can't teach it or duplicate it? If somebody just hands it to you and you don't go through the process of level 1, 2, 3, all the way through 10, if somebody just took you and, you know, put you in an elevator and dropped you off from floor 1 to 10, you can't tell them what the journey looks like on 2 through 9. You can't tell them. But when you've had to walk those stairs, you've had to go floor by floor, now you can duplicate the process. You know just about what pace you need to walk it. You know just about how much time it's going to take. You know just about where you need to take a break. Why? Because you started on floor 1, you started here, started there, now you here, and you understand the whole process in between, the bottom to the top. There's no wisdom in starting at the top. The wisdom is in taking the journey from the bottom to the top. Right? Right? You know, you don't find superstars like a Michael Jackson. You don't find that every day. People that accomplish, I don't know if you have anybody that's accomplished what Michael Jackson accomplished in his musical career. I don't think you do. Not worldwide. I don't know if anybody's ever at Michael Jackson's status. You know, I think at one point, maybe before Michael, the Beatles, you know, were in that vein. Maybe Elvis Presley. But usually when you see people that have mastered a thing like that, it's not like somebody just put them on. No. You can look at their track record. They took the journey from the bottom all the way to the top, and they learned every lesson in between, right? Listen to what Romans 5:3-4 says, and not only so, but we glory in tribulations also, knowing that tribulation works patience, and watch this, patience experience, and experience hope. And there's nothing that feels more like tribulation than small beginnings where you don't have enough and things are not working. Well, when you go through that, it is producing within you experience that you can do what? You not only enjoy the success, but now you can teach it. You can actually take others who are coming that way and you can say, okay, do it like this, and then do this, and then do that. Why? Because you've gone that way. If somebody just put you on the top, you don't know nothing but how to just be on the top. But when you've gone that way, you can teach others. And watch this. Why is it that you think self-made millionaires are able to lose their money, go back to nothing, and then become millionaires again, sometimes over and over and over again. It's because they know the process. Trust fund babies, typically, if they lose what they're left, they don't know what to do. They spend the rest of their lives begging and struggling because in most cases, they never learned the process. So the small start is the true success masterclass. Don't despise it. And then number 4, and finally, the smaller my start, the bigger God's glory. God will allow you to start small so that ultimately he will get the greatest glory. When we start small, people disregard us and take us lightly. They count us out. But then as God graces us with opportunities and with wisdom, our success many times takes them by surprise because they weren't expecting us to do this. Not with where we started. You know, in my own personal mind, there's no greater success story. There's no man that is more successful than my father, Prophet Robert Charles Blake Sr. Because you have to look at where a man starts and then compare that to where he ended. See, there are a lot of men who have a great ending, but you know, they started halfway the track. But my father started below zero. And then look at where he ended. He accomplished 3 lifetimes of success. Because the smaller my start, the bigger God's glory. Sometimes my small start is really just a setup for God's glory. Sometimes God already knows he's going to bring me to the very top of this thing, the pinnacle of it. But he allows me to start small. God will show me that you're going to be in a high place and people are going to bow down like he did Joseph. He showed Joseph, people are going to bow down to you and you're going to be in a lifted up place. And then he lets Joseph start in a pit. Then he moves Joseph from a pit to slavery. Yeah, really, that's somebody said that looks like a move up, but no, that's really a move down, because at least in the pit, I'm still a free man. He moves from the pit to slavery. Then he moves from slavery down to imprisonment. And then God takes him all the way from the bottoms of imprisonment, and God takes the gift that is in him, and God uses that gift to translate him from the bottoms of the prison to the top of the palace. Because the smaller my start, the bigger God's glory. And Joseph, when he met his brothers, finally, they realized he didn't die and that he had become this powerful man. He says, who am I to judge y'all? You meant it for evil, but God meant it unto good. Sometimes my small start is a setup for God's glory. God is going to get some glory out of this situation. And let me read this finally in Mark chapter 6, verses 2 and 3. It says, and when the Sabbath day was come, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many hearing him were astonished, saying, from whence hath this man these things? And what wisdom is this which is given unto him, that even such mighty works are wrought by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary? They're looking at his start. The brother of James and Joseph and Judah and Simon, and are not his sisters here with us? And they were offended. His hometown people were offended because they say, you started where we are, and now you're here. And then Jesus goes on to talk about how a prophet is without honor in his own town. Because sometimes God will use your start, that small, insignificant start, because he knows ultimately it's going to bring him the greatest glory. So my prayer for you today is that you be not discouraged, be not dismayed. God has a plan for you. God has a plan for you. God has a plan for you. It all works out after a while. I promise you it does. It all works out after a while. Take in the wisdom, take in the lessons, because God has a future for you and He will work it out. All you have to do is stay the course. God bless you, my babies. I love you. I love you.